All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, depending on where you are in the world. So today, Heller Barnes. At least I got the name right this year. This date, and what we're calling this thing. And so we have a fantastic guest with us tonight, Karen Commins. And Johnny, can you give us a little bit of introduction and her backstory and tell us about Karen, please?
Well, I'll allow Karen to do her own backstory, but I'll give an introduction by saying this. One of the most helpful mentoring souls in our industry. We always talk about the audiobook world being so friendly and community oriented and so mentoring. It's a bunch of crap, except where Karen's concerned. She's the audiobook share-rater. She not only is a talent on her own, she is she does the Narrator Roadmap, which we're going to talk about in depth. But she's just so giving and interestingly enough, so polite and sweet and just it's like she could have popped right out of the Andy Griffith show, and that's so she's just delightful, but she has an edge to her you can find in some of her responses to idiots. Yeah. So there, without further ado, my friend Karen Commins.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. That's so kind of you. I appreciate it.
There's some weird stuff mixed in there. Hey, Don, you know Karen from way back too.
The funniest thing, so we go back over, I don't remember I've been in this business 10 plus years. I do not remember a time where I did not know Karen, in that we ran into each other. One of the groups today that has over 10,000 people, we were both in that group when it had less than 100 people. And then at some point I became an admin and she was asked to be an admin and she turned it down because she was like, I want a life. And I did it, but we knew each other. So here's the thing. When somebody has been around for a decade in this business, Johnny and Karen, we have seen people start with great hopes, aspirations, and we look at them and go, that person has great potential. And then a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, they're gone because they often did not take good advice from people and they did not go and look at what works and what doesn't. And Karen, I mean, I don't know, what have you seen over these last 10 years? Can you tell us a little bit about people that succeed and maybe people that might not? What have you observed about that?
I think the people that succeed, first of all, they respect other people and they seek out good advice and they seek out coaching and they're constantly upgrading their skills, both as a performer and as a technician. And those are the people who know that the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. And the people who don't, I think, don't realize what all is really involved in being an audiobook narrator. You're not just reading. We all know it's not just reading. Oh, if it were only just reading. There's so much more involved and so many skills that you have and hats you have to wear. But through it all, you have to be nice to people. It's a small world and we all talk. And I feel like the people who don't quite make it sometimes just don't realize how small a community it is and how interconnected it is. And you need to respect everybody whether they're a legendary giant like Johnny, who's got every award known to man. And
First time anyone's ever referred to me as a giant.
well,
Yeah, Karen, you haven't been with him in person, have you?
I have actually.
Okay.
Uh, he still stands tall in the industry, though. So, and I'm not just putting him on a pedestal. He has deserved every accolade he's ever gotten. But whether you're someone like him or you're just starting out and you've never done a book, you have to respect everybody and treat people with kindness. And I just don't understand the people who don't. So don't get me started on that.
I do want to get you started.
Well, I do want to, yeah.
Okay,
We want to get you started.
Wind me up. I'll get on my soapbox about it.
But so why is it, so what, hold it. Why can't I be a rear end toward everybody else and just tell you, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And why don't I just push that in your face in the groups or maybe in Reddit or someplace else?
You can do that all you want. Do it all day and night if that's what you want to do. But understand that actions and speech have consequences. And if nobody wants to work it with you because you have shown you are unrivaled jerk, well, that's on you. You could make better choices and treat people better. I always look, there's so many things that annoy me and so many things that I could spend my time writing somebody and telling them they're wrong or whatever. But I've always had a guiding principle. I can be right or I can be kind. And I would rather be kind. And so there's a lot of things you have to just let go because it's not worth your time, energy, and everything to get embroiled in some argument on social media that means nothing. But
Yeah.
Whether you're on social media or you're face to face, people remember how you treat them. They remember how you act. And nobody wants to work with a jerk. Everybody wants to work with somebody who's fun and easygoing and gets the job done and understands their responsibilities and lives up to the deadline. You want somebody who is a responsible, functioning adult. You don't want to work with a jerk. I mean, it just doesn't get any simpler than that. And there's a conversation in one of the groups this morning that I just could not believe an adult was acting this way. Because
What did they say? Do you remember the opening statement that they made?
The opening statement, and so you don't have a 7-second delay, but it was, what a shitty admin. And
I commented on that. Yeah,
I did. I saw your comment. It was an excellent, well-reasoned comment because Johnny asked this person, what is your end game here? And the thing is, this person had a conversation with one of the admins in this same group last week and didn't like what that person had to tell him. So then he screenshotted the whole thing, said, what a shitty admin, and put it out there in the group today. Well, I hadn't seen the previous conversation. This was all news to me.
Me too.
And, the person that he was maligning is extremely well respected in the industry. And everybody in the group, there's over 100 comments, and most of them are people saying, dude, you don't know who you're talking to, and you don't understand the repercussions this is going to have. I saw one author said, you're going on my new no hire list.
Right.
And I responded to her. I said, I made sure he's not in my editor's directory, nor will he ever be.
Right.
Because that is not somebody that I want to work with or I want to suggest other people work with.
It's important because this is career damaging to this individual, and any individual that acts this way. But it's also important to make sure that you put people in your never hire and never work and never be list based on your actual lived experience with them, and not because there's also a lot of gossip about people, good and bad.
Yes.
There's little groups, little cliques who say, and you can't be swayed by I think you have to speak from your own experience or investigate your research. Because
this is my only dealing with this person. This is the first time I ever saw this person's name. The first words out of his mouth were, what a shitty admin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was so taken aback by that.
So
first of all, the language.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And then to try to put this out there like this, that you're having this argument with this person, that's not an adult way to solve things. If you have a problem with somebody, you go to that person and say, let me understand where you're coming from, because I didn't appreciate what you said, but maybe it's just because I'm reading your comments and I misunderstood something.
Well, I know in this business, because this is a small business. I mean, there's a bunch of people in it, but it's small. And I know some of my dear friends, I've heard some bad things about it. And I think, well, in my experience, those things simply aren't the case. And sometimes I've discussed the thing if I thought it needed discussing. But in 9 out of 10 times, you have to accept your lived experience. So my lived experience with this person who wrote this thing, that's my only experience I've had with this person. So, of course, it's a negative look.
Right.
I have nothing else to judge, but this person behaved the way they behaved. And that is my lived experience. All I'm saying is that in this world we live in, the social media, there's so many things. It's so easy to misstep or to be lauded or destroyed by by almost anything. It's a tricky thing. So you've got to try to, as best you can, be on your best behavior in the social media world.
And your comments live on into perpetuity. People don't seem to get that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
and nothing's safe. Nothing's safe on social media.
but I want to. So here's the other thing that the part of it that where I was kind of like, what the heck, with a little bit more force was, okay. So if I say something and my initial thing is out to lunch, I don't want to double down on it later, because instead of having the grace to go, hey, I maybe I phrased it. That person could have gone back, and if it had been me, I would have said, maybe I'm missing something. I have a disagreement. I had this discussion with somebody, and it didn't turn out the way I expected. I think the exact opposite of this person, but I might be missing something. Can anybody enlighten me? Or some variation on that in your own words. Then all of a sudden it's not oh, Karen's a rear end. I hate Karen. Karen's stupid. Then it's not a direct attack on me or that other person. And the phrasing of it made a huge difference and creates this whole controversy that was totally unnecessary. And then he doubled down on it later.
That's so true, because not only would I rather be kind than right, but I also try very hard to give people the benefit of the doubt. And the first words out of this person's, mouth, or pen, or typing, the first and only comment I saw from you, I can't give a benefit of a doubt. There's no benefit of a doubt to what you're saying. You're just flat out accusing somebody and using negative language to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 strikes. I mean, and then the doubling down in the thread, 3 and you're out. I mean,
if you have a language problem, you want me to cover my sign?
Yeah.
No, no, but there's a time and a place for all kinds of communication, and what he said was not the time and the place.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've given this fellow enough of our airtime.
Okay.
Let's move into other things. Let's talk about.
Well, but before we go, I
please.
did have a link, and I almost put it in the group, but I did want to share it with this audience. It was something I wrote a while back about how people in groups should act. And let's see, I will put it, share it right here.
Did you just share that to me? Yeah.
Yes,
I got it.
I don't see quite how to share.
I got it. That's
okay.
okay.
But anyway,
I got to go into the full chat
on this call.
There we go.
Yeah, and I saw a couple of comments in the chat, like somebody wanted to find a thread, but I didn't see what it was. So because I'm thinking, well, I could find it, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What was your next question?
All of these threads, by the way, all of these are in one or the 2 ACX groups, almost always.
Yeah.
Almost always all the interesting, crazy ass things around those 2 groups, which are enormous groups. And it's just, you deal with it or you don't. Now
I know we gave this person enough of our time, but can I just make one more comment, please? And that was that I noticed he said, you all are a bunch of indies who are struggling to make a dime. Woo, you don't know who you're talking to, because so many people are making so much money on indie work.
I've got a jar full of
publishers
dimes
and
right
producers hanging out there. I mean, it's just, anyway, I've said enough.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So here's Barbara Hensley asked a question, and I think it's a second half of my question. Barbara wants to know how you got started with the Narrators Roadmap. How did that originate? And I want to know that too. But before we get there, there was you. How did you get into this business? And I assume in that chat, in that story, we'll get to the Narrators Roadmap. So let's go back a little before the Narrators Roadmap and tell us about your origination story there.
Oh, well, thanks for
your
asking.
superhero
And you're
story.
right, it does evolve into Narrators Roadmap. From the time I was in 5th grade, when I won a contest at school for naming the new county helicopter, we had done all this fundraising for the county helicopter, and then our class raised the most, and so there was an essay contest for somebody to name it.
Did you name it Whirly McWhirly Face?
I did not. That was probably their second choice. I lived in DeKalb County, Georgia, and so I named it the DeKalb Eagle, and I had all these reasons of why the eagle's important in the country. And anyway, I won the essay contest. And part of the prize for that essay contest was doing a PSA on TV, because they were still raising money for it. And I remember I didn't quite like how I looked on TV, even at this early age, but I loved how I sounded. And I've always loved to read aloud. And so my goal from a child and through high school. I wanted to be a cartoon voice, a talk show host, and a play-by-play announcer in baseball. And the third thing, I was way ahead of my time because they've only recently had women as play-by-play announcers. But I went into journalism in school because that was in college, that was the only path I thought could get me to those things. And turns out I was working at everybody's favorite government agency, the IRS at the time, and they announced a programmer job. And I applied, and what they really needed at the point was communication skills. They said, we know you can learn the technical skills, because I had a degree in journalism. I hadn't really used computers, but we know you can learn the technical. We need your communication skills. And so I went on this 25-year odyssey through information systems, working in programming and WAN, email administration, and I was doing that at the IRS, but there was always this dream still there. And so I started volunteering for the Georgia Radio Reading Service. I thought that's going to get it out of me. That's all I need to do. And I did that for 5 years, but that didn't get it out of me. And so then I took a voiceover workshop with Paul Armbruster here in Atlanta, who has sadly left us. And that was working on commercial, and that's not quite what I wanted to do, because by this time I was listening to audiobooks back in the 90s as I commuted to my job.
What's on tape?
Well, I remember writing to Frank Muller, who another person who has sadly left us, but he was a huge talent. Yeah. He was recording it at home, and I remember writing him just a few questions of, like in 1996, of where do you get your books and how do you record it? And so he was even recording at home then. And so I wanted to do audiobooks, and I got an audio file. This was in 2000 or 2001. And I started looking at the publishers in the back, and there was one called North Star Audiobooks. I mean, I wrote to different ones, but North Star Audiobooks gave me my start. I have always recorded at home. I have always had a home studio. And so that was at the start of the millennium, a long time ago. But you know, audiobooks weren't mainstream entertainment until the last few years. I've been to so many APEX. Oh my gosh, I've been to so many APEX. And I would tell producers, Delta's ready when you are. I'm in Atlanta. Delta will go anywhere in the world nonstop. I can be here in 2 hours. And the answer always was, well, why should we hire you when we've got everybody we need within the area here in New York? So when ACX came in 2011, I was a beta tester, and that's when everything changed. ACX gave all of us who are not in New York or LA a toehold into the industry. And so I joined these Facebook groups, like Don mentioned, the one that we've been in for so long. And I found that I was answering people's questions. Now, you have to realize I always did this in my job at the IRS too. I was always kind of the senior administrator, systems admin, and people would come to me with their questions. And I want to see that you've done your own research. I want to know what you've done, because then that'll give me an idea of where we go from here. So I've always had that kind of role. And then I found in the ACX group, I was doing the same thing. I was answering questions because I genuinely want to help people. I feel like my mission here on the planet is to help people. And I was answering questions. And a number of people told me, you should not be just giving all this information away for free that you've had to fight hard for. You've gone to conferences, you've taken training, you've learned all this stuff. You shouldn't just be giving it away for free. And I know my friend Ann Flosnick kept telling me, especially, you should write a book or something. And I didn't want to do that. I never wanted to be an information marketer. Somebody told me once that because I also wrote articles on my blog, and somebody told me once that you provide so much information and you seem to be the only person on the internet who's not looking for money. And that meant a lot to me. But there was an APAC in 2018 where, and we had just had this very bad year where we lost both of Drew's parents in the same year. And in fact, Johnny, your Splendiferous, you pulled my name for a reading, and I told you I just can't do it.
Right,
because,
I remember.
Yeah, because I just wasn't emotionally where I could do it. But I went to APAC anyway, and there was a group of narrators. I remember Amy Rubenate and Tavia Gilbert, and there's a couple others whose names aren't coming to me at the moment, but they were talking about how experienced narrators are branching out. And when I got on the plane that day, because I foolishly day tripped it, here's an advice: don't ever day trip Atlanta to New York to go to APAC. Just don't do it. But when I got on the plane that night, I realized what I needed to do was a membership site. And that's where Narrators Roadmap started, because all the free information that I'm giving out, I could still put it there, but then I could add even more for people who want to pay for it.
Right.
And so that's where it started, and it's 4.5 years old now. I work on it every single week. I'm always adding calendar events for the members. I have a casting directory for members where I list not only the companies and what they produce, but I've got the producers with them. And then every time they go talk on Johnny and Don's Ask Me Anything, or they're on a Clubhouse show, or they're somewhere that I can link to it, I've got that there too. So there's all this information that you can listen to the producers and understand them better and what they're looking for. And so I pulled all that together, because like organization and making links are my superpower. I make links like other people breathe. So that's kind of where it started, and it's still evolving.
Yeah, and so Tad mentioned, so only 4.5 years old. No, this is actually the result of over 10 years of accumulating resources. And then about 4 years ago, she decided to, if I have it right, please correct me, have a bunch of information that's still available free for people to get started. And then there is also a version that you can pay for as a membership and get into way more depth. Is that close?
Right. And I forgot to say that in this ACX group, I actually made an FAQ even before I started the Narrators Roadmap. And that's part of why I realized that's what I needed to do. Is I created an FAQ because so many times conversations come up in the group and it's a really good conversation, but then nobody can find it later, or it doesn't,
Right.
Nobody knows, or they ask the same question 67 times. And so I made this FAQ.
They never use the search feature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I made this FAQ with all these links to all these great conversations. And part of Narrators Roadmap is I want to liberate all of that from Facebook.
Right.
It needs to be out in the world and not just tied to Facebook for a number of reasons. But so I forgot to say that was part of its evolution. And so, yes,
we will mention
a ton of free stuff
again toward the end, but I do want to say, how do people, it's narratorsroadmap.com, yes?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's simple enough to remember. We're going to put and so people can go there and they can join, and they should join. This is, you will find, and you meaning you and the audience will find, looking through social media, Karen and her Narrators Roadmap mentioned countless times, and never, ever, ever negatively. It's such an important resource, and she's such a lovely human being to provide it. There was a long discussion many times and over, when some of the people who were the earlier people who worked in audiobooks, and I'm talking about Scott Brick, me, and I'm just some people who've been around a long time. I've been around a real long time. The idea, and people would always say, hey, and they'd literally say, people say, hey, can I buy your coffee? And you tell me about, how to do everything, so I don't have to, I can just get your experience without actually living it. And there were some complaints. I remember early on that said, look, you can't, a cup of coffee doesn't really, even in New York where it's $4 or $5, is still not enough to justify me telling you everything.
Right.
So here is, it's not an expensive fee to get an absolute boatload of information that is unquestionably helpful no matter where in the industry. I get it regularly. I get the emails, the thing. Karen sends me stuff, and Karen, without, I'm gonna blow the horn for you a little bit. She knows, as does everybody who knows me, that I'm a Luddite technically, and I don't know things. But
No, I've never said that about you.
You don't
in
have
your
to
hearing
say it.
distance.
You know it. So,
I have.
so there are some. So she is working with me. I'm not going to give anything away on a public domain project that I'm quite excited about.
I'm so excited for
She
you.
turned me on to it. I'm working on it. I'm going to get her done. I'm not halfway through, but I'm working. Some personal things came up and got in the way of my working, but she doesn't have to do that. She never had to reach out to me. She never had to share things. If you've ever coached with me, I use something called Evernote, and I'll write notes that I set up a little template. I did the template, not anybody. I did it. I designed it, and it's for the students. And I write crap down and I send it to them. Now it can do a lot more than that, but I don't know what it can do. But Karen is the one who turned me on to it. Didn't have to do that either. I use Evernote, which I think is fantastic, because Karen suggested it. Because Karen will talk you through things. She'll work with you if you're willing to be a student that pays attention. One of the things I've always been bothered about, I don't mind when people ask things, and they don't have to do what you tell them, but at least listen to the answer.
Yeah.
If I ask Don, what's so good about Studio One? And as he tells me I'm reading Mad Magazine, well, why would he share any more information with me? Karen is a resource whose value is there's nothing I can't put a number on it. It's absolutely, you're a treasure, and I mean that.
And
Thank
you've been
you
so good
so
to
much.
me over the years. I cannot thank you enough.
Well,
Thank you. You're going to totally swell my head, John.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you. That's so kind
You
of
deserve
you.
it.
just as a personal example, so my wife had a question. I didn't even remember what it was directly, and she posted something up there, and the person that answered was Karen. Now, she hasn't interacted with my wife directly, and my wife's done a crazy number of audiobooks, but she had something specific, and who answered? Karen. Karen did not need to answer. Karen doesn't know my wife. She didn't even, probably may not have even put together that they were, related. But what did she do? She saw something where she could assist, and she went ahead and did it on her own time, in her own time. And she's been doing this for a decade. So it's one of those interesting things. So where do you see things going from now? First off, when people don't succeed, are there any things that you see come up common that they're doing that gets in their way?
Well, aside from the things we've already discussed, a big thing is self-negation and talking badly about yourself, because I think what you put out in the world comes back to you, and in a way and time you don't expect. And so every time you say something, it's coming out of your mouth and it's feeding back into your ears, and your brain is believing that. So if you say, I'm not good enough, oh, I'm too stupid to learn this, or I just don't get it. Well, guess what? You've just made a self-fulfilling prophecy for yourself that you're not going to get it. You have to constantly monitor, or I do, and I encourage other people to, that what are you thinking and saying and writing, especially about yourself? And like, I've made it a point that there are many voices that I don't find pleasing to listen to, but I don't say something even about them, because remember, what you put out in the world comes back to you. So if I say, oh, that voice is terrible, that grates on my ears, I can't stand it, why does anybody listen to that? Sooner or later, it's going to come back to me, maybe in the form of an Audible review, or maybe it won't come back to me. It'll just be in the producer's minds of, oh, I can't stand that. I truly think there's a cause and effect of, what are you thinking, saying, writing, and putting out in the world, and the experience that you're seeing mirrored back to you. And I feel like a lot of people doubt themselves and worry and stress about things that are all not important. Like, they're not going to matter 3 months from now. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I worry and stress about things too. But in terms of thinking about my ability and my place in the world. Because here's great, for instance, for years, I did feel like I was blacklisted because I wasn't getting any traction with publishers, no matter what I did. And I felt like it's personal. It's something about me. They don't like me. They don't like that. They don't like my voice. They don't like Narrators Roadmap. And what I came to learn is it's not personal. It's not about me. I'm not being blacklisted. But see, the more I thought about that, and like I wrote in my journal, oh, I feel this way, then the more that's what seemed to show up for me.
Oh,
you know,
self-fulfilling,
it's such a self-fulfilling prophecy. And some of it's so ingrained in us, we don't even realize that's what we're doing. So you have to stop and like, okay, what am I actually saying? So I'm not blacklisted. They don't like me. In fact, every time I see them, it's like they know me, they like me. I mean, there's not a problem there. So it took a lot of conscious thought to change this very negative pattern I was in, just swirling in. Because see, once you get on it, then you're just on a negative slide, and then you just keep thinking everything else is wrong.
And you're sharing from your lived experience. I mean, the teachings of Maslow and Jung and other psychoanalysts and things. And I've been reading a lot lately about self-compassion and things. And now you do need to give yourself some room and give yourself some credit. On the opposite side of that, and this is something I wanted to ask you because of the nature of who you are, the kind of human you are, a warm, and you know how I feel about you. So
yes. And it's mutual, obviously.
If you're dealing and I don't think you do one-on-one coaching, do you?
I don't.
Okay.
And I stopped that because somebody gave me attitude one time, and it's like, I don't need this. So that's why I don't do it.
One time? One time?
Well, that's all it took was once.
Yeah.
And it's like, it goes back to what Johnny's saying. Like, if you don't like my advice, don't just shut it down while you're hearing it. At least think about it, try it. But just to shut me down that way, it's just like, fine, I don't need to do this. So anyway, go ahead.
So but I guess my question is, and it's for Don as well, because sometimes when you work with people, like you said, you don't want to say someone has a bad voice, but what if you're with someone who wants to, here's the bigger picture. Everybody wants to get into our business.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Regardless of their experience, of the fact they have no acting background, which you don't have to have, but it's an acting job. But they may not be very good. Not necessarily vocal. I mean, Gilbert Gottfried had a ridiculous voice and did things. They worked all the time in voiceover. It's not the sound of your voice, but it is the kind of person you are, the work you're willing to put in. And it's someone whose expectations are greater than their abilities, who are not willing to make the change to make those match. I'm trying to say this in a nice way. Some talentless asswipe who comes with you and spends your time trying to encroach and say they want what you want without going through any of the steps one takes to do it. I want a Narrator's Roadmap kind of world. And you're willing to share with me, and I won't take the steps you're telling me to take. I want to know how to be a tech guru like Don, and he's willing to tell me, but I'm not willing to take the steps. Those people, when you encounter them, given the fact that you are nicer than me and far nicer than Don, how do you handle that? How do you handle people who clearly are only interested in an attaboy, carry on doing what you do, even though they don't deserve an attaboy or a carry on?
I think a lot of it goes back to the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book had such an effect on me. And one of the agreements, the first one, is be impeccable with the word. And that means the word, whatever you're thinking, saying, writing, that you mean what you say what you mean, but you don't gossip, you don't accuse people. I mean, it goes into depth. And for me, I always want to meet people where they are. And who am I to say you're not going to succeed later? You may not be listening to me now, but maybe you'll think about it. Maybe the time is not right for you, and you're going to think about it and come back to this later when you can apply things. So it's not up to me to say you're going to be successful or not. I can tell you what I think should happen, but if you don't want to do that, I can't make you do it, and it's not worth my mental health to worry about your choices, unless of course they affect me or they hurt other people, and then I have to say something. But it's just not up to me, and you never know if what's going to happen with somebody. I mean, I guess it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, that I'd rather be kind than right, and I want to treat people with respect, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt if I can. But that doesn't mean I suffer fools willingly. Like I get a lot of email.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what I
answer
mean.
every email I get. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's
You don't.
I could spend all my life doing that. And I learned this lesson from Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind. And one of the reasons that she never wrote another book is because that book became her business. And every letter she got, she felt like she had to answer. Now, she didn't have a computer. She couldn't use a template. She couldn't copy and paste her answers. So she's typing all this stuff. She hired people to type these letters for her. There's volumes of her correspondence, and a lot of it's like you'll see the same kind of thing in multiple letters. What a colossal waste of time. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed reading them, but that's a whole other story, because it wasn't getting her something, you know. And so when people write to me, I prefer to answer in public, because then that way more people benefit from the answer.
Right.
You know, it's not just one-on-one, but if it's not even something, I mean, then I look at it like, can I answer it in 5 minutes? Then I probably will. If it requires more time than that, then I'll answer it on my blog, or I'll write an article. But I just can't be the information desk for everybody. It's not my job, you know.
But
so
are
job,
you aware? Listen, you're clearly a swell person. Are you aware of how important you are to the community and how revered you are? I mean, are you aware? Because you should be, and I'm not trying. You should be.
But if I say yes to that, I sound very arrogant.
I know, but you're not. You're not that person. Are you? You know you're popular, don't you?
I am increasingly alerted to other people's views of me, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to help people.
Okay. So I want to back up here. The one thing that ends up driving all of us crazy that help a lot of people is this. I'm willing. Somebody sent me something today that said somebody had been in prison and then worked their way out of that. Just got a degree. They've got some equipment. They're working on stuff. They've been doing their homework since whatever had happened to them earlier in life, and they said, "Hey, would you be willing to assist this person?" It's like, absolutely. Now, why? Why? I mean, I don't know this person. But I know that they're doing their homework, and they have been doing a bunch of things since whatever issue they had in the past, but they're doing their part. I think all the information givers, Johnny's so generous with his time when he sees somebody that is doing the most they can do, and then they ask for a little bit of assistance, is totally different from the guy or gal who calls us and says, can I buy you a cup of coffee, and then you spend an hour with me so that I don't have to go through everything you've gone through. But it doesn't appear that they're doing their homework first. So there's just a big difference between somebody who is doing their stuff and working it and doing what they can do. And then on top of that, almost everybody is willing to assist. You guys are just beautiful about that.
Yeah. I mean, and I, like I said, I think part of what my purpose in life is to help people, but I've also always thought that if I help somebody, then someday I'm going to need help, and somebody will be there to help me. It all goes back to what you put out in the world comes back to you.
You very Eastern philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, and I've even told people this, look, you're probably not going to be able to pay me back directly on this one, but you darn well better pay somebody else for what we've discussed, because first off, right now, whatever we're at the stage you're at, You can't help me because I'm already beyond that stage, and that's cool. I don't need anything back right now. I will from somebody else for some
Right.
other purpose, but be sure you pay it to somebody else just like you got it. And if we all do that, then things are better. And also, are you familiar with the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? I'll bet you are.
No, but it sounds like something I should read because I'm always reading and talking about mindset issues.
Well, I'm gonna throw that into the chat here.
Great.
Maybe I'm gonna throw it into the chat. There it is. The chat. I don't know. And for some reason, it's not allowing me
Have you
to.
ever read Everybody Poops?
I have not. That
I
was
have
not
not.
on my shelf. I did see somebody in the chat had mentioned Wayne Dyer, and I love Wayne Dyer. I've probably read everything that he has written. And there's so much wealth of
There's a bunch of
info
kids.
in what he has taught. And so, yeah, he has molded me a lot in case anybody couldn't tell.
And now so what are you working on these days? I know doing the narrators. Are you working on any projects right now? Books, anything?
Well, I am. Thank you so much for asking. So everybody knows, or a lot of people know, public domain is my passion, and I'm publishing my next book today.
Tell us about it.
It's Bammy, Theodore Roosevelt's remarkable sister, in the public domain. And part of why that got moved up on my list is I became aware that Simon & Schuster is publishing a book next week about Theodore Roosevelt's loves, which include his older sister, Bammy. And I thought, this is a good time for me to do it. So I do like to be aware of what's happening. I'm working prep on my next public domain book. But the thing that I'm most excited about is a mashup project. Now, I did a mashup project several years ago in Bly versus Bislin, where Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bislin both took individual solo trips around the world. Nellie was going to beat Phileas Fogg's around the world in 80 days, and Elizabeth was trying to beat Nellie. So Nellie got on a ship out of New York sailing east, and Elizabeth got on a train that night and went west.
I'm not sure mashup is a good title here.
Well, they each wrote a book, and so I put them on the same timeline.
Nice.
So it goes back and forth. Well, this one that I'm working on is even better because there's about 5 books involved, and they're all public domain. So the thing about public domain is it belongs to any of us, and we can do whatever we want to with it.
Is your book in Audible or is it in print format or both?
I'm sorry, what?
Your new book, the book you just came out with today or recently, Audible, or is it in print format?
Well,
or both?
So I'm only doing the audiobook.
Okay, good.
But part of my work with Narrators Roadmap is I have a whole section on public domain for members, and I have curated books in a whole bunch of categories that members, I think, would be good ones for members to do. I have found a Kindle rights holder who publishes public domain books. And so now I've got a partnership with somebody who will make a Kindle book. I mean, he may not make all of them, but so far he's made the ones that I've requested, including the one I'm publishing today. And so he's making the Kindle book, and now I can claim it on ACX and publish my audiobook. And I would always rather do that because ACX gives me download codes. They give me daily reports of sales. They pay me every month. Not every distributor does those things. And so I'm very excited about that. And in fact, on May 15th, I'm doing my first Zoom with Narrators Roadmap members to talk about self-publishing because...
When is the date?
May 15th.
All right. Let's make just send down whatever you need to know to make sure our people know about that.
Well, and also I wanted to say I made a discount code for your audience. So if anyone is not a member, you can get a 15% discount through May if you enter the code HBAMA for Heller Barnes. Ask me anything. So it's HBAMA through May 31st, and it's a 15% discount for new memberships. So if anybody, and I'm not pressuring you, if you want to sign up, great. If it's not for you, that's great too. But anyone who's a member who wants to attend the Zoom on May 15th, I'm going to talk about self-publishing.
On a personal note, you know that when I'm done with my book, that I'm gonna.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Now,
I'm waiting. I'm
yeah, okay,
waiting for the message. Like
What?
you're ready to go. So
yeah,
yeah, we'll walk through
yeah.
it.
You'll make some money off that, by gum.
Can you spell
Well,
Bammy for me? Sorry.
it's Bamie. It was short for Bambino.
Okay, I'm just looking for it so that I can put a link in there to
Her
you.
real name was Anna Eleanor, which is confusing because then Eleanor Roosevelt
yeah.
was also Anna Eleanor. They all named them the same thing. But and so Johnny, the book that you're working on, this Kindle rights holder that I have the partnership with, already has the version available. So
Well, that's what I'm using.
yeah. So great.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna do more on it this afternoon. As a matter of fact, I'm all.
I'm excited. I'm so excited you're doing that book. So yeah, when you're ready, we'll talk and get it published. I mean, because you'll have other options. We'll talk about that. But anyway, that I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited about this mashup because I'm going to make it a multicast. And
Brilliant.
Oh, it's got everything.
Should I bring Joanna in now?
I haven't mashed it up, so I don't know quite how the parts are going to fall out. But it's and I don't know how I'm going to afford everybody, but I'm still working through all of that. I'm still putting it together, but
listen, in the world of theater, you just tell them you're going to pay them later. They'll do the show.
It'll be a nice credit for you.
You need the publicity, Johnny. Nobody knows. Yes.
Hey kids, I got a barn. Let's do a show. Come on.
Well, and the other thing I'm excited about is, so everybody needs to do something that's not work related. And I think a lot of people know one of my things is my harp. And I love my harp. And I found that Harpo Marx's collection is at the Smithsonian Archives. And within his papers are his handwritten arrangements. Oh. And so Drew and I are going this fall to research in the Smithsonian Archives, and I'm going to get all of Harpo's music and hopefully maybe make some kind of book that harpists would be able to play from. I mean, I'm just so excited. And Groucho's,
he was self-trained. It may be hard to get people who are trained on the harp to do it his way, because
that is such a good point, and that is so true, because he tuned it differently.
Yeah, he did everything
and in fact, I got a piece. The Smithsonian sent me one piece, the Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 from Liszt. They sent me that, and that's why I'm like, oh, I've got to go see what else is there. Yeah. But I was looking at what he wrote, and I'm like, I don't understand this. I'm going to have to get a teacher to help me, because some of what he wrote down, like you said, it may just be very what's the word? But to him,
it was
significant to him, and not necessarily to a harpist in general. So I'm really excited to see what he's got. But Groucho's papers are there too, and I'm going to take a look at those while we're at the Smithsonian.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and if you need a narrator for it, I know a guy I might recommend, by the way, if that ever comes up for Harpo.
Really? Wonder who?
I don't know. Somebody I've known for a little bit.
I will say that absolutely. The Marx Brothers, I still watch them regularly. Groucho Marx is the guy who made me appreciate comedy. They're just those are the people I revere.
Yeah,
and they're still funny. They still holds up after all this time.
Funny never stops being. I watched Blazing Saddles again when it was on HBO, because you can't make that anymore, obviously.
No,
right.
We're all too triggered and woke and everything, but it's still damn. Even what else is funny is the Airplane.
Yes.
And everything Leslie Nielsen did after Airplane is still funny to me.
Yes, we quote from both of those often.
Yeah.
In fact, we were having flight delays. We went on the Audiobooks at Sea cruise, and it was a terrible day to fly home for everybody because it was storms all over the country.
Yeah.
And we were only delayed an hour and a half getting from Miami to Atlanta. But we're like, Timmy, have you ever seen a Gladiator movie? We still quote those.
Neil Helliger started quoting to me Airplane. Do you remember the? I think I was up from, I can't remember when it was, but he puts his arm and he goes, Good luck. We're all counting on you. And then he said like 3 times in the same event.
But here's the big picture of all that. Because you liked comedy, because you were a comedian, you studied comedians before you. Because if you're an audiobook narrator, the takeaway from this is the best stand on the shoulders of the people before them, and they potentially build on it, and you can become even stronger. But the hard way, or the way you can do it if you choose to, is ignore Karen, ignore Johnny, ignore the good advice that's out there, do it your own way. It can work. And you will find, and almost unfortunately it can work, but it does work to go your own way sometimes. But almost invariably it takes those people 3 to 5 times longer, because they get to learn all the lessons that we already learned. And if you want to accelerate this process, you go ahead and you invest something in a Johnny, in a Karen, and you find the tools and the methods and what they've done wrong, what they've done right, and you pay attention, because it'll pay you back. Johnny.
I do want to backtrack for a second, because we have a question here. We always say ask us anything, but then I keep forgetting to take any questions.
Yeah.
So there is. So
which one?
One about is there a link to sign up for your public domain? Did we put that out yet?
Well, it's only for members of Narrators Roadmap, and I announced it in the last newsletter.
Okay.
And I'll have something in the next newsletter, which is next Monday. But even beyond that, I'm going to set up something separate to just, because not everybody sees everything in the newsletter.
So, everybody follow Karen, and everybody just damn well join a Narrator's Roadmap, and then you won't miss any of these things. I mean, what's it cost to be a paying member?
It's $35 for 6 months or $70 for the year.
Oh, come on.
And like I say, right now through May, I'm offering your audience the 15% discount with HB AMA.
You're charging way too little. You guys, that's not even breakfast here. Come on.
Yeah, and
like I said, I never wanted to be an information marketer. And so, and I recognize that when people don't renew, the main reason they tell me is because of financial reasons. And so I've wanted to make it, affordable. Very affordable, like you could skip your coffee or something, that it wouldn't pose a hardship to people.
Yeah.
Because I never wanted to be an information marketer, but yet I do realize there's a value to everything that I'm doing.
And people pay more attention to if they paid for something than if they don't. It's amazing how much free information you give away, and then you find out people don't listen to that, and it's unfortunate. So some of us end up putting prices on things because we know that. I've had people go out and tell me, I can't afford something, and then they turn around 3 weeks later and they bought a $1,000 microphone, and I think, wait a minute, you just told me you couldn't afford $200 or $50 for an educational thing, and then you just spent $1,000 on a microphone. But I know a month ago you told me you couldn't do the 50.
That happens in workshops a lot too. Like I have workshops and people say, I can't, and they want me to help them, and I do help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But then I found out they went to somebody else's or something else that cost more than me.
Right.
Crazy. By the way, Harry Roger Williams, the 95th there. He's talking about Fire Sign Theater. Did you guys ever
I know. Yes. We're all bozos on this bus. Yes.
Yeah. And I have seen a number of the comments, that very kind things that people are saying. And I just want you to know I am seeing them, and I'm appreciating so much what you're saying. And I'm grateful for all of your comments and support. And I'm just so glad that the information I'm providing is useful to people.
And do I have the URL right? Can you see that on screen where it says narratorsroadmap.com below us?
That's right. Yeah.
Did I spell it right? Do I have it right? Can you see that, Karen?
It's still tiny on our screen. I don't know what it's like to the viewer.
Yeah, it's just narratorsroadmap.com.
Okay, so if anyone goes to that and I had that wrong, please correct me, throw it in the comments.
And if you want to use the discount code, there's a place when you're signing up to enter that. And going back to my May 15th Zoom, I'm going to do something, I think, next week to send out some sort of registration form, because I'd like to, I have some questions that I've kind of been saving, but I'd like to know other questions that people might have.
Oh, let's
I
take.
always like
Out
to,
there.
I always like to know questions so then I'm ready with some answers. But what I used to tell people when I worked in IT and they'd come to me with a question is, if I don't know, I'll be glad to make up something.
Johnny's like that too.
But the thing is, when you're making up something and you're sitting on a wealth of experience, it's not
different.
quite making it up, is it?
Right. Right. Here's the weird thing. You and Johnny, it's you've forgotten more than most people know. And so, yes, you might temporarily say something and then realize, oh, wait a minute, there's even a better answer to that. But that's because of all that experience and seeing people succeed, seeing people fail, and then making decisions of, okay, that was decent advice 5 years ago, but the world has changed. Now we have to go with something else.
And I think I kind of alluded to this, but I always want to encourage people and lift them up, because you never know the effect you're having on somebody. And, maybe somebody who doesn't get it now, but maybe they just need a little kindness, a little encouragement, because you need to follow your dreams and to have. I read Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she wrote Big Magic, a book about creativity. That may not be the exact title, but it's a fantastic book. I love reading books about creativity, and I took a workshop with her as well. And the big point from her is, to have a creative life, you have to follow your curiosity. And that's part of why I'm going to the Smithsonian this fall, is because I'm following my curiosity, and you just don't know where these things are going to lead. And so I guess if I could leave people with a final note, it would be to follow your curiosity. And if people are trying to discourage you, but it's something you really want to do, just keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep learning things, keep talking to people, keep reading things, keep experimenting. Because that's what gives you a rich, full life, and that's what we all want, and that's where happiness flows from.
Well, I have an image of you sitting home in your spare time watching Mr. Rogers reruns while listening to the music of Up With People.
Yeah. And so, and I have a slightly
but I might take that up.
I have a slightly different take on it. And that's that I'll look at it from this way. If someone is contacting me to be a mentor in some area, my obligation is to both be nice to them, but also give them unvarnished or the best path forward, even if they don't want to hear it. So I think we can do that in a nice way, but I am also not. I'm not into just giving them, just being Mr. Nice Guy in terms of the actual results. And I think you're the same way. We don't want to give them bad information, but we can be nice about it.
Somebody's.
Yeah, we can be nice. I could say, hey, maybe I'm missing something. I don't see it that way. Here's an alternate point of view on it. What do you think of this? And do it in a way that allows someone to think about the other things. And I think you do it all the time. You think of yourself as super nice, and you are. But at the same time, you're also not willing to suffer the fools. You will go ahead and tell them, hey, I've seen that, and that doesn't really work for the majority. It might work for you, but boy, be careful. Here's what I've seen about that. Is that close?
That is. And I try not to give unsolicited advice, although if anybody's read what I write online, you're like, you're giving advice all the time. But what I'll say is not, you should do this, but you might want to consider.
Right.
Or you might think about this.
Right.
Because I'm just offering you ideas. I'm not telling you black or white, this is how it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm doing exactly what you're saying, though. If you're not putting forth the effort and trying to get better,
why are you going to spend your time?
Say, well, maybe you want to consider looking at this kind of role or this kind of job, because maybe this isn't the thing. See, this ain't
for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to say I think, I believe, whatever, because I want to stand in the power of whatever it is I'm saying, but and the power of my convictions. But I don't want to act like I am the source and I can tell you what your life is going to be. And so I just want to give you ideas of what might make your life better.
You like you can say to someone who's asking for work and they're not in the place yet, and you say, have you considered the actuarial sciences? Something like that. Just kind of direct them elsewhere.
No, I'd probably say, have you considered going to Johnny's workshop? Have you worked with Don about your audio engineering? Because we all have to know some level of that. It's not like you can just know nothing.
Right.
Home studios are here to stay, and we haven't even talked about AI, and we're not really going to, except that we as humans are the ultimate storytellers, and we need to keep getting better at what it is we do, so nobody would ever want to hear a synthetic voice.
Yep, I agree. And listen, this has been just a splendid hour with you. We can't thank you enough. We're going to have you back.
I've just enjoyed it so much. Yeah, I just love talking with y'all.
Because you're a delight. And Don and I thank you for being here. Do you have anything you want to? Well, you've got the Zoom coming up. That's the next thing coming up, and we've already put it in the put it out there in the chat, and it will be there in the YouTube video later. Don will put it up there. You guys join the Narrator Roadmap and get involved and I'm going to take the Zoom if I'm around, depending what time it is. I'm going to try and get it. There's always, understand that you can hear Don and I. Don makes this point every single week. We're always learning.
Yes.
You can't, you never know it all. And there's always things to learn. What Karen will be sharing in her Zoom is stuff I don't know and I want to know. I know people make great money regularly and have great joy in public domain. There's Karen right there.
Yes. Yes.
And Don, have you got anything coming up for you?
Let's see. I'm going to my grandchild's house for her first birthday next week. But here's the cool thing. Be sure to join, of course, later this afternoon, every Tuesday, 2:00. I always get the times wrong, but it's 5:00 on the East Coast, 2:00 on the West Coast, where I do my Ask Anything for tech-related stuff, VO Tech Simplified. So that's every week on Tuesday, so be sure to join me for that. VOJumpstart.com, of course, and all sorts of good stuff. So lots of stuff, but I'm more happy that Karen's here and Johnny's here. And Johnny, I think you have an event coming up next week. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Wait. I predicted this and it happened, and I like being right. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happened in this case. I predicted that when Johnny told people that he was doing the New England Narrators Retreat, that people that had been there in the past would go ahead and they would sign up for it. And Johnny, what happened when you put out the invite for the next event coming up in the fall?
We're not sold out. We're within 2 hours. We basically sold every room on site. We still have some rooms, doubles to share a double, and there's offsite hotels available, but on site is almost full already. And it happened literally in a 2-hour window.
And you didn't even announce it. Why?
I announced it only to my workshop alumni group on Facebook.
Yeah.
I've since made it more public on Facebook, but it's
crazy. So get on the wait list if you need. Yeah. So you have a wait list, Johnny, possibly?
No, but if you put your name down, you can't get in. I'll start one. I don't know how to do that, but I have people.
Yeah, I put it on Narrators Roadmap member calendar, and it will be in the newsletter on Monday, but it sounds like by the time people see the newsletter that it's already going to be sold.
Yeah, we have an offsite hotel, and I don't want, we have to cap the number because it loses its community feel.
Yeah.
If it gets too large.
Yeah.
I don't want Woodstock, I want Elvis Returns, a little smaller. Yeah.
All right. Well, so thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to pass this on to a friend. It's really helpful if you put a comment in the YouTube page after the show ends as well. That's super helpful. And sharing this with other people, of course, is great. We're here every week, same time, same bat station. So, as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you a little bit later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I love talking with you all.